we're going to look at is to simplify expressions. Part of what you need to remember when you're doing this is that order of operations that you've learned in the past. Now, I write my PEMDAS a little bit differently than some teachers do, because first you do any operations inside parentheses that you can do, then you do any exponents, and then the reason I stack the M and the D is because you do multiplication and division from left to right, whichever one comes first. You don't always multiply first. And then the last thing you're going to do after you've taken care of all of those is addition and subtraction. One thing I want to address in this first part, and then we'll talk about the distributive property and combining like terms when those come up, is that idea of standard form. It says variables in alphabetical order within the same variable, exponents written large to small and constants last, which that all sounds kind of weird and confusing. What it means is that something written in standard form might look like this: 3x cubed minus 2x squared plus 5x minus 8y squared plus 2y minus 11. Notice all of my x terms come before my y terms because alphabetically x comes before y. And then within my x terms, an exponent of 3 comes before an exponent of 2, comes before an exponent of 1 that we usually just don't write. And then the very last thing I write is a constant that doesn't have a variable with it. So, this first example I already worked through, but just to show you where these things came from. The distributive property. I have two terms inside this set of parentheses, 4x and negative 5. With the 3 out in front, it means to distribute that 3 to both of those terms inside the parentheses. So the 3 times the 4x became 12x, and the 3 times the negative 5 is negative 15, so I write this as minus 15. Since I wasn't going to do anything with these next terms, I just brought them down. Now, to combine like terms have exactly the same variable with exactly the same exponent. So this 2x squared and this minus 5x squared are like terms. They are both x squared terms. Standard form says the x squareds should go before the x, should go before the constant. So positive 2x squared minus 5x squared gave me my negative 3x squared. And then my positive 12x, there was just that and no other x term. And then my constants are negative 15 and then minus 3, if I'm going to put that in my calculator, to give negative 18, so I wrote minus 18. Do not ever in a final answer write plus a negative. It's just minus. Otherwise it's not simplified. Then I circled my answer because I was done. There's no distributive property to do in this problem because there are no parentheses with more than one term inside. So I just need to combine my like terms. I've got a 6x minus 11x for negative 5x. And then I've got a negative 4 plus 12 is positive 8. Minus 22 is negative 14, so I'm going to write minus 14. That's written in standard form because the x goes before the constant. I can't combine these because this has an x and this doesn't, the constant, so they're not like terms. So I'm done. Again, no distributive property in this one. With x terms and x squared terms and constants, x squared is going to go first. So I have a negative 5x squared minus an 8x squared for a negative 13x squared. My x's would go next before my constants. So I have a 6x plus a 4x is 10x, minus 16x is negative 6x, so I'll write minus 6x. And then the last thing is just this constant, minus 3, and no other constant to combine it with. And then I circle my answer because I'm done. Here I do have some distributive property. I have this 2x minus 9, these two different terms inside this set of parentheses with the 3 on the outside. So I have to multiply each of those by the 3 and do that distributive property step. So 6x minus 27 minus 13x plus 3. Those other two I'm just going to bring down. My x term should go first. 6x minus 13x is negative 7x. And then negative 27 plus 3 is negative 24. So I'll write minus 24. Circle my answer and move on to the next problem. The last two, notice there's some distributive property work. because there are these two terms inside the parentheses with the 4 in front, these two terms inside the parentheses with, in essence, a negative 3 in the front. I need to multiply, think about the order of operations, multiply, so do that distributive property, before I add or subtract. So I'm not going to do anything with the 5x at this point, or the plus 12, I'll just bring those down. Positive 4 times positive 3x is a positive 12x, so I'll write plus 12x. Positive 4 times negative 6 is negative 24, so I'll write minus 24. And then to combine my like terms, 5x plus 12x is 17x. Negative 24 plus 12 is negative 12, so I'll write minus 12. And the last one, the temptation might be to do the 6 minus 3 first and get 3. But remember the order of operations. I would not do this subtraction before I do this multiplication. So the 6 is going to come down, and I'm not going to use it in the step, and the minus 5x will come down as well. Negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x, so I'll write minus 6x. Negative 3 times positive 4 is negative 12, so I'll write minus 12. And then combining my like terms, negative 6x minus 5x is a negative 11x. And then positive 6 minus 12 is negative 6, so I'll write minus 6. I'm done. I circle my answer and move on.